On this episode, we visit City Hall in Philadelphia to look at their pedestrian safety campaign. Then we talk with a member of Phillywalks, a local pedestrian advocacy group. We head west to suburban Columbus, Ohio, where some school children are bused one block because of dangerous roads. A mother is concerned that driving her son everywhere hinders his personal development. Finally, we look at the little things that can make life difficult for pedestrians. Stay tuned. We're in Philadelphia talking with Denise Scorin, who's Deputy Mayor for Transportation. Historically, what has Philadelphia done in the way of pedestrian safety programs?
Historically, pedestrian safety programs were primarily targeted at children, teaching them the rules of pedestrian safety. We've done it in the schools, with the police department, and we've gone out and talked to them in various settings. Clearly, historically, that hasn't been enough. They need to be reminded as they become adults.
Okay. Recently, you started something called Operation Crosswalk. How'd that come into being?
Operation Crosswalk is the program which basically entails both education and enforcement about the rights of pedestrians and the responsibilities of motorists and bicyclists as to who has the right of way and when. And it's a program that looks basically at trying to raise everyone's awareness about the need to look out for each other. It's a program which basically has three components. The first is education, and we've gone out with universities, with school children from kindergarten through high school, to senior centers, and basically just shared information and started to warn motorists and pedestrians that they have to follow the rules of the road. After that education piece, we went out there and did just that. We picked throughout the city of Philadelphia, throughout all our police districts, hotspots where we had some histories of accidents, and showed them that we meant business, and basically started giving violations, and when violations weren't in order, simply warnings that looked like a violation. We've got people's attention. It's an issue now in Philadelphia, and hopefully we're all starting to look out for each other.
And this has not been what some people traditionally do, which is jaywalking ticketing.
No, we're really focused on not the jaywalkers as much as the people who simply are oblivious to the rules of the road. People who think that right turn on red means speeding through an intersection and not coming to a complete stop. People who really were not aware that the state law is that turning vehicles must yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. People whose driving behavior is creating situations of danger, and we wanted to end that. Everyone, though, whether you are a pedestrian or bicyclist or motorist, has started to take notice of whether or not they're stepping off that curve and what the light is. And motorists slowly are taking notice as well. This is a walking city, and lots of people are on our sidewalks and crossing our streets. It's one of the charms of Philadelphia that it's so easy to walk around, and we want to make sure it's a special feature that stays for many years to come.
In this operation, you went well beyond the traditional just addressing the school children. What are you going to be doing in the future?
We have a campaign that basically came from a series of donations from the private sector as well as the public, which has three major components. The first is we have inside all of our buses car cards which talk about the program. We have two different public service announcements which relate to those car cards. Throughout the city, on our bus shelters, advertising panels talk about this issue. And in fact, a fourth component, which is rather unusual, we've actually taken the logo for Operation Crosswalk and are printing it in the crosswalk itself to reinforce this campaign and the need for everyone to learn what a crosswalk's for, when to use it, and to look out for each other. The public service announcements for TV are somewhat radical. They're not sweet. They're not cute. We don't have a cartoon character. We've got a big guy named Junior who's lumbering across the street, and the message is real clear. Both you and your car will be hurt if the two of you run into each other, if you run into Junior. The second ad is also somewhat unique. It plays on the commonly held game, which is in very poor taste, of points. Too often, among many of us, we talk about the fact that when someone's crossing the road, there's a grandmother, 10 points if you get her. It's a joke. We're playing on that joke, which we agree is not funny, to get the point across that these are points not just of a game, but there could be points on your license and points against your character and your future. Those are the two ads. They will be airing, and you'll see them in bus stops and inside the bus, as well as on the crosswalks themselves in the months to come.
If you think hitting a deer could screw up your car, just imagine what a run-in with Junior could do. Operation Crosswalk. Let's look out for each other, okay?
We're in Philadelphia talking with Happy Fernandez, who's councilwoman at large.
That's right. I also chair the Transportation Committee here in City Council.
Which is how you got involved in pedestrian issues.
That's right, that's right. Besides being a walker myself.
What was your role in Operation Crosswalk?
Well, Operation Crosswalk, which is our enforcement and education campaign to reduce pedestrian deaths and injuries, my role was basically convener, initiator of a broad-based public-private partnership and coalition that worked together to make Operation Crosswalk a big success.
And you say it's been a big success. What's it done that's been good?
Well, frankly, I've been surprised at the success we've had with Operation Crosswalk, where for this year, pedestrian deaths are down by 50% so far. So unless we have a horrendous rest of November and December, we're expecting that pedestrian deaths and perhaps injuries will be reduced by as much as 50%. So frankly, I'm amazed and very, very pleased that this combination of public education, which we had been doing before, but this new element of stepped-up, high-profile enforcement by the police has really, I think, led to these dramatic results. Because we'd been doing various kinds of information to the public through public service announcements, TV spots, all kinds of leaflets. We'd been doing that for like 4 years. But what happened this year that I think is why there's this dramatic downturn in deaths is because of the police enforcement. The police have given out, they started in February, and since February they've given out over 5,500 tickets to motorists who are, cutting pedestrians off in crosswalks and things. They've only given 10 tickets to pedestrians who were like doing the most outrageous kind of jaywalking. But they have given 7,200 warnings to pedestrians. Not to count, I think it was about 500,000 pieces of informational paper that a whole wide, leaflets and things. So I think it's that combination of information plus high-profile, well-publicized enforcement that's really gotten people's attention.
So the missing piece was actually enforcing the laws that had been there all the time.
Exactly. And I know when I first started tackling this issue 4 or 5 years ago, I thought, well, God, the way things are in our city, we need to get some tougher laws to stop the jaywalking and have motorists be more respectful. And when we checked into it, we have the laws we need on the books. It was a question of enforcement. And I think when I say high-profile enforcement, it meant we also got a lot of public publicity, media coverage of what the police planned to do and then what the police had done, and also the dangers of jaywalking. So while our major focus has been on motorists, and the police have mainly concentrated on ticketing motorists because they're the ones that actually kill the pedestrians or injure the pedestrians, we've also been trying to educate the pedestrians themselves and encouraging people not to endanger their own lives by jaywalking, but instead cross at the green and cross in the crosswalks.
And you've got some other things going on in the city. You had a hearing just a couple of days ago on traffic calming. What did people talk about?
Well, actually, we had traffic calming, as you know, is measures that can be taken, particularly in the way streets are constructed, the kind of signage you have, to help traffic slow down and be calmer, and therefore not only make it safer for pedestrians, but also to increase the quality of life in neighborhoods and also in business quarters, because people, instead of feeling road rage or feel like streets are speedways, they feel, hey, this is a place I want to walk, this is a place I want to shop, this is a pedestrian-friendly city or neighborhood. So this traffic calming, we brought in some experts from other cities, New York City, one of their traffic engineers, also Fred Kent, who's a nationally known person who's worked all around the country helping neighborhoods enhance their quality of life. We had a man from Dover, New Jersey, and another person from Maryland. So we brought in some outside experts. We also had at the table our streets department and the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. And then we also had people from various neighborhoods who have wanted to have the streets department address some of the pedestrian difficult spots or some of the need for traffic calming in their neighborhoods. So the goal of the hearings was to educate the public, educate our city officials, and educate us in city council. And I'm hoping the outcome of the hearings will be now some more speedy steps to address some of the problems that our residents are experiencing in neighborhoods.
Speeding traffic, you say, is a real quality of life issue for many of these neighborhoods?
Oh, it is. I mean, if you've ever lived on a busy street like I do, frankly, until about 2 years ago, I thought, well, this is the way things are. You're going to have cars speeding by at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour. And then when I started going to other cities, Portland, a couple of good examples in Boston, Sarasota, Florida, even some things are being done in Chicago, I said, hey, you know, our city could be different. Just think how different our neighborhoods would be if major through traffic got routed around neighborhoods and major heavily pedestrian trafficked areas, and instead we could sort of recreate and enhance that feeling of this is a nice place to walk, it's safe for children to play, it's a safe neighborhood for older people who want to be out, you know, enjoying the neighborhood and sort of not locked in their homes. So this really is a quality of life, not only for neighborhoods, but what we learn from other cities and some of the issues we're trying to address here. Business corridors, you know, neighborhood shopping districts are suddenly realizing if you have traffic zooming through your shopping district, people are less likely to want to shop and stay there and wander around. People going out for restaurants don't want to really eat on busy, you know, drag strips. They want a nicer ambiance for their business strips. And also some of the solutions provide for additional parking and but slower traffic through the business corridor. So I think we have a lot to learn from the outside experts here, and also I as a city official want to see if we can get our city department, streets department, and work with PennDOT to work with our neighborhood leaders and citizens to enhance the quality of residential life in our city. Philadelphia is known as a city of neighborhoods, so many of us are realizing there's a lot of those little things that can be done to really increase the quality of life in our neighborhoods. And again, my particular concern is pedestrian safety, reducing injuries and deaths, but also having a pedestrian-friendly city and pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods.
If this is how you see pedestrians, then we'll see you in court. Operation Crosswalk. Let's look out for each other, okay?
We're in South Philly talking with Peter Hecht, who's co-chair of Phillywalks. What is Phillywalks?
Phillywalks is a grassroots pedestrian sort of gadfly and education organization. We are working to improve the overall pedestrian environment in the entire city of Philadelphia, part through educating both residents and the municipal officials as to the importance and requirements of a good pedestrian and safe pedestrian environment in the city.
You're relatively new. What sort of issues have you been looking at so far?
We've really been looking at issues of, for the most part, very basic safety, getting drivers to actually stop at stop signs and at pedestrian crosswalks, trying to get some traffic and enforcement within the city so that people don't feel quite as intimidated walking around town.
And we're in a neighborhood called Bella Vista. In some ways, this neighborhood's very good for pedestrians. What would be some of the good features of the neighborhood?
Well, there's a lot of destinations in here. There's a library right behind us. On this side, there is a elementary school about 100 yards away. A block and a half that way, there is an open-air Italian market, which is produce and meat and dry goods vendors, for which people all over the city come to. There's a bakery right on this corner, a pizza parlor right here, the first Italian Catholic church in the country on the next block. So you have a lot of children and older adults walking in this area. And a lot of people, there's a major water ice that people come from all over Philadelphia, John's water ice, to come to during the summer.
Maybe not quite so much on a day like today.
No, I'm afraid not today.
Okay, now, but things aren't all sweetness and light. What are some of the problems you'd have at an intersection like the one we're at?
Well, since Philadelphia was really not built for cars, they've been sort of jimmied in. What you see here is originally there are 3 streets coming together. There are now 2 sets of sequential stop signs, maybe 60 feet apart. And what you have is what used to be a stop light and a stop sign. Is now people basically go through one or usually both of the stop signs without any sort of regard for the pedestrians. While this is a school children's crossing, there is a crossing guard out here in the morning. But it's very dangerous because the drivers are looking at the way the 2 streets come together at an angle, trying to watch out for the other driver, who probably hasn't stopped for the stop sign either. They're not going to be able to see the pedestrian. They're not paying attention to the pedestrian, so the pedestrian's left to fend for themselves. And they have to get out of the way of the car, rather than what the law says, which is the car yields to the pedestrian in the crosswalk.
And then this intersection isn't necessarily unique to the city.
No, there are many intersections like that, plus the fact that the city in the last 6 years, I believe, removed many of the stoplights within the city, ostensibly to improve traffic safety by taking away from people the likelihood that they would race through a yellow light and cause a crash with another car. But what really happens is people just tend to obey the stop signs less and speed through them, which means a block up from here we have an average of 3 crashes a year because the streets don't meet quite at a right angle, so that the drivers coming out from the side block basically have to be in the middle of the street before they can see the car coming at them. And it's very dangerous, which means they're paying all their attention to the drivers coming up the street, none to any pedestrians who happen to be crossing. And as I said, there's a lot of older adults and children, school children coming through here. That is not a good situation. It's really intimidation of the pedestrian.
So Phillywalks has a little bit of work to do.
More than a little. We've got our job cut out for us.
We're in Columbus, Ohio, talking with Lori Weber. Are a lot of students bused in this area?
Yes, we're a unique school district in that we have 15 schools right now. We have an operating levy on the ballot for next week, which would open up a 16th school next fall. And out of those schools, only 2 of them are walking schools, schools that children live within the neighborhood and can safely walk to them. All the other schools this district is forced to bus kids to because of roads like this that the city has not made improvements on so kids can safely travel across them. This is a Saturday morning. This is nothing compared to how the traffic normally is. And I know Lynn England and John Best have worked on this issue for over a year. I got involved in it last spring. And the city has fought all along saying that this is a safe road for kids to cross. Our school district doesn't agree, and so we're forced to bus kids from this house on the corner across the street, 7 houses down, to get them to a middle school.
So you're spending a lot of money busing some kids just 1 or 2 blocks. What's the implication for the school district?
Well, obviously, when you're spending as much money as this district does on busing, it's taking money away from hiring teachers, getting textbooks, getting technology aid into the schools. This district spends a lot of money on busing, which in the state of Ohio, we had a landmark case last year called the DeRoth case, in which the Supreme Court struck down how schools are funded. The state legislature is dealing with the problem now on how they're going to come up with a way of funding schools. Funding for schools is always difficult. It always, at this point, relies on property taxes, which aren't readily available at all times. So schools traditionally struggle with funding. When a school district like this has to put out as much money as we do to ship kids, bus kids, 3 blocks, that money could be spent in different ways had the city planned ahead, knowing that if you build subdivisions, you're going to have children, and somehow those children are going to have to get to school. I have a 7th grader that goes to Davis Middle School and a freshman who goes to the high school. And while they are bused, both children are in sports after school. My 7th grader just finished his football team, but now he's in an academic group after school. He cannot walk home, even though we live less than 7/8 of a mile from the school, because I will not let him walk across this road. It is just too busy. On an afternoon at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you cannot get across. Even as a driver, I will not make a left turn on this road because it's just impossible. I will either make a right-hand turn and adjust my way home or go straight across.
We're in Columbus talking with Lynn England. You're the mother of a couple of children. Do they get to walk around your own neighborhood?
No. My children have been bused to and from school since they started kindergarten. I'm probably what a lot of people quote a soccer mom. They are either bused or driven everywhere. And it wasn't until a few months ago I came to realize what a problem that presents when they get a little bit older and want to get out and about the community on their own. At this point, I have a son who just started middle school who wants to be able to go out with his friends and walk around. He wants to be able to walk the 2 blocks to school rather than ride the bus because there are some other kids that do. And it's become an issue in our house. He is not permitted to because I feel it is not safe. But on the other hand, I realized I've really missed an opportunity with my kids because they've been bused and because they've been driven everywhere. At this point, they have no experience walking or crossing streets. They have no training getting out and moving around the community, and it's something I've really overlooked.
At this point, what needs to be done?
Well, it's a huge problem. It's very difficult to decide where to start because it's not just in our neighborhood. It's the Central Ohio area. We are a very vehicle-oriented area. Pedestrians don't get a lot of attention. So there's a lot of work to be done. I think that at this point we're looking at starting in the schools. We need to train the kids, and we need to start training the kids. Even if they are bused, they still need to know how to cross streets. They still need to be able to move safely throughout the community. We have been approaching some of our elected officials to try to get some improvements done. I think just getting the word out, focusing attention on the problem is a big start.
We're talking with Alex England. Do you get to walk around much?
No. My mom doesn't think it's safe around here, and I don't either. With all this traffic going around, I don't feel safe. My brother, he's been walking without my mom knowing, and he might get hit, and I'm getting kind of scared that he might get hit, and I don't have a brother anymore.
Sometimes when homeowners go to the nursery and buy that small young shrub, they don't realize how big it's going to get when it grows up. As a result, they tend to plant the bushes a little too close to the sidewalk. Unless you're out there trimming that hedge several times a year, it's going to encroach on the pedestrian space. In a case like this, these overgrown shrubs force pedestrians to go by single file. But trimming back to the edge of the sidewalk really isn't quite enough. Pedestrians need a little bit of elbow room. So you should plan on having that hedge set back from the sidewalk. Have a little area of grass or ground cover, something low, between the sidewalk and the hedge, so you don't have to trim it every month. Unlike these folks, their neighbors across the street have set the shrubbery back from the edge of the sidewalk with a little grass space. They can neglect that hedge for a year, and pedestrians still won't be interfered with. It's too bad more homeowners don't follow that good example.
Visions. Am I willing to keep the vision in mind and, God darn it, be an unabashed promoter of this activity, a marketer of this activity, an absolute fervent believer, because that's what you've got to be. You can't be, well, walking's a nice mode option too. No way. Let's not be there anymore. Let's be out here and say walking's really the best option, because if we're not the voices of that, nobody's going to be.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.